Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai Bahasham Rakah HaKwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than never. All right. The would-be judges, the tabernacle of David, the 144,000, 12,000 men from each of the tribes of Israel, from the 12 tribes of Israel, which will be the judges here on earth under the authority of who the world fraudulently and falsely called JC. All right, a lineal thing, a lineage thing. All right, the tabernacle of the Lord is with men, Ezekiel 34:31. All right, the Lord saw the new Jerusalem coming down. Heaven will be here on earth, and it will be ruled over by the Israelites, and they will rule over all other nations. All hills and governments will be beaten small and brought to naught, and everyone will follow the laws of the Bible. Finally, on earth as it is in heaven, enforced by the men of the 12 tribes of Israel, who will now be immortals under the order of Melchizedek, meaning without mother and father. They were translated to new bodies, to new people. The rest of the Israelites that make it, they will be what we're now calling, what do you call the umbilical cord Israelites, nutsack Israelites, because they will be brought back through the actual action of sex through Israelites. All right, bringing back the rest of the Israel to the other side into the kingdom. Facts. All right. And to the rest of the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth among the heathen that have the appearance of the heathen. This is not a black only thing. All right. And to the few akwaf, meaning the sisters that are listening and learning, to you, I say shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the great millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another brutal lesson in truth. And this is a video that was sent to me by my beloved April O'Neil. The water again, beloved, for what you do, keeping these, man, ooh-wee. But these are a couple videos that go back to 6/18/22. All right. So I'm just going to play the first one now. But basically, when I started looking at the video, I recognized, I'm like, hold on, this is bubbleized. And he corrected some heathen and brought out some I had to side with Bubble Eyes. And, you know, even though they go off, he's the head of GLCC, and they go off on a lot of things. But whenever there is a debate, you know, between an Israelite and some other people, some Christians, or an Israelite and some, some Edomites, or Israelite and a Muslim, whatever it is, you know, I'm always going to side with the Israelite. And it's not that in this point, and, you know, that in this particular thing, I wasn't siding with him because he knows he's an Israelite. I was siding with him because he was absolutely 100% right. Okay. And for all you ish people out there, all you converts to, Jayism. All right. Abraham was not Jayish. Abraham was a Hebrew, and the rabbi sitting at the table is going to say that, or the small hat, because there's a small hat sitting there. So I'm going to play this video, and then I'm just going to go right into the scriptures. Okay, so let me turn the sound up. And the video, I guess this is on TikTok, because, yeah, they're going to take this off YouTube. But it's called A Promise Explained in Simplest of Terms.
You study under a rabbi for 5 years and go through all the contents of Judaism, you can become a Jew. Yeah. But your bloodline is not Jewish. It's not through the promise that was given through Abraham. Yeah. So when the promise was given to Abraham, that was through blood. Abraham wasn't Jewish. Sorry.
That's the small hat.
Abraham wasn't Jewish. Listen, I didn't say Abraham was Jewish. Thank you. So okay, so brother, you bringing things that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Listen to what I'm saying, though. Listen, I'm talking. Listen,
matter of fact, let me stop it right there. Let me stop it right there, and we'll go back to it, just to solidify what he said. You know, let's go to the scriptures. This is Genesis, I think it's 14:13. Yep. And it reads, and there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre and Amorite, brother of Eshcol, a brother of Anar, and these were confederate with Abraham, or Abram. His name hadn't been changed to Abraham yet. All right, so Abram was a Hebrew. Okay, all the seed and all the different, you remember Abraham had 8 different sons, and all his sons' children were Hebrew. Okay, he had the 6 sons with Keturah. All right, he had Ishmael. All right, and the sons with Keturah were from an African woman, a Hamite woman. Then he had Ishmael, who was the father of the Ishmaelites. Those are your most of the Arab nations and Muslim nations come out of Ishmael. All right, because Arab is basically a mixture of Elam and Ishmael. All right, but anyway, and then he had Jacob and Esau. And so all of them are Hebrews. Understand that. So, these J-ish people run around talking about Hebrew, as if they're the only Hebrews. And that's how they created the Sem word, the Semite, when the man's name was Shem. Because Abram came from the line of Shem, not the line of Sem. So they create a lot of falsehoods with this J-ishness. Let's read the definition of falsehood. It says, and this is from Etymon Online Dictionary. All right. Basically, etymology or etymon means the truth in words. And falsehood, noun, falsity, deceitfulness, also a lie, for which is false. From falsehood, formed on the same pattern as Old Frisian falschied, Dutch Valschied, German Falschied, Swedish Falsik. Former noun is funny. All these are coming from languages that were spoken mainly by Edomites. In English, now extinct, included falsage, wrongdoing, falsedom, deceitfulness, treachery, a lie. Falsic, falsehood, early 14th century. False, heap, deceitfulness, dishonesty. Let's go down. Next word, and these are the words related to it. Lie, an untruth, conscious and intentional falsehood, which is the doctrine of Christianity teaching that Romans, the 2nd chapter, anybody that believes, and not bringing out the simple fact that what we keep showing you in the Bible, that there are 2 sets of Gentiles. All right, in the book of Romans and Hebrews, while there's a book of Hebrews and while there's a book of Romans, because they were the same people. The no difference between Grecian and J, all right, an Israelite, was the simple fact that you had one group, the group 2, the same. They were part of the same group of people. One group knew they were Israelites and were keeping the laws. The other ones were living in the Greekish fashion and began to keep the laws, begin to wake up and remember themselves, as the Bible says. And Christianity purposely teaches away from that truth and teaches that it was talking to all the other people who were not Israelites according to the bloodline. All right. And so that is a complete and total falsehood. And we present all the evidence as they try to use scriptures, whosoever, and they that believe. And then they go into Romans and try to discredit that the circumcision matters not. And those very scriptures that you try to use to prove their lie, prove that they're lying. And I'm going to get some of them. But this is, so anyway, it says false statement made with the intent to deceive, Middle English, lie, falsehood, Proto-Germanic, also Norse, Danish, Old Frisian, Lane, Dutch, legume, or High German, German, luge, Gothic, lithium, a lie, all right? Accused directly of lying is attested from the 1590s. Lie detector is recorded in 1909. And then the last part of that is fabrication. Oh, and untruth. So you got 2 more. All right. And actually 3 more. Mendacity. So you got fabrication. You know, you can screenshot them if you want to or go look them up. Then you have untruth. And then mendacity, which I've never, this is a new word to me. And it basically is a habitual lying, also falsehood, a lie. 16. And that's, well, mendacious. We're going to start calling these Edomites and these Christians mendacious, right? Whether purposely or by default, because Christians regurgitate the fraud, the falsehood of that everyone can make it, anyone who believes. And that is not what the Bible says. All right. And we're proving it thoroughly right here. Okay. And let's go back now to the video. And now I'm going to just let it play through. Okay.
You study under a rabbi for 5 years and go through all the contents of Judaism, you can become a Jew.
Yeah.
But your bloodline is not
Jewish.
It's not through the promise that was given through Abraham.
Yeah.
So when the promise was given to Abraham, that was through blood.
Abraham wasn't Jewish. Sorry.
Correct.
Listen,
Abraham wasn't Jewish.
listen.
Abraham wasn't
I didn't
Jewish.
say Abraham was Jewish.
Thank you.
Okay,
Abraham
so
wasn't Jewish.
brother, you bringing things that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Listen to what I'm saying, though. Listen, I'm talking. Listen, I'm going to speak to you right now. If you gave your son a promise, and there was direct laws that your son would need to follow to inherit those promises, that's your bloodline.
Yeah.
Now, if your great-great-great-great-grandson forget that he have a promise, that doesn't mean he lost his promise. He forgot he had a promise.
Yeah.
Listen, now if this guy come from the Caucasus Mountains and come over and say, you know what? I'm going to follow what your great-great-grandfather followed. Just because he's following it, he's still not his promise.
Exactly.
You understand?
Yeah.
He's just practicing what the children of the promise should be practicing to some degree. But when the child come back and realize that it's his promise, should it go to the person that converted? Or should it go to the bloodline person?
It should go to the bloodline.
Exactly. So that leads us to this conversation because, believe it or not, Christ had a purpose to die on the cross for a people.
See,
Let me
and
get
that's
that
what
real
Bubble
quick.
Eyes went off. He called him Christ, knowing that that is an interpretation, that is a Greek interpretation of a title, not his name. Once again, that is a Greek interpretation of his title, not his name. All right. And he could have said the real name, but he did not. This is where was one of the reasons why we have issues with people like him.
Get Hebrews 8:8 for me real quick.
And see, and then he says, get Hebrews 8:8. Why didn't you use the Lord's Hebrew name? If you're going to talk about his identity and his seed line of promises, why didn't you tell it? Man.
Seconds. I'm going to show you how this turns and come around full circle. Let's get Hebrews 8:8. Because this is the part I'm going to tell you, even in Christianity, they have really rejected the truth concerning this. They'll tell you it doesn't matter who the physical people of God is now.
Yep.
It can be anybody. Now, to some degree, it's right. Anyone can follow the truth.
But
you cannot reject the bloodline. So the question now is,
look, you're going to have to follow the truth in the kingdom of heaven. All right. We're talking about the promises and the covenants and the ruling, the ones who get to rule over. For the other people, who are the Israelites are going to rule over if the people that believe get to rule over their own people with them? It makes absolutely no sense. All right. So let's go to Hebrews 8:8. Let's read it. Okay. And I'm actually going to read through it down to verse 4 to the end, to 14. because what you have to understand the connection to the Hebrews and the book of Romans is a perfect example of there's no difference between either Hebrew nor Greek, because they're all Hebrews. They're all Hebrews according to the flesh. And they leave that very important detail out. Like we always tell you that there are two sets of Israelites, well, all the way down to 13. There is no Hebrews 8 and 14. But starting in verse 8, it says, for finding fault with them, this is what he asked for, what Bubble Eyes asked for. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days are come, saith Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant. But who is it with? With the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It didn't say any of the other nations. All right. That's why it tells you that the Lord has dealt with no other people. In Amos, the 3rd chapter, and Joel, the 2nd chapter. That he has not, the other families, the other 17 nations, he have not known them. Right. Including those that came out of Egypt, the Hamites that came out of Egypt with the Israelites. They weren't with the Israelites when they got the covenant by blood. They weren't a part of that. Okay. Verse 9, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand and led them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord, I will put my laws in their inward parts and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they will be to me a people. It's not saying anything about any other people. It's about Israel. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for he shall know me from the least to the greatest. So let's look and see who your neighbor is. All right. We can go to 1 Samuel 15 and 28. All right. One of my best favorite examples of who your neighbor is. Your neighbor's not the heathen across the street or next door to you. Right here on my block, I got a heathen next door to me. And I got a couple more heathens down the street. All right. It's mostly on my block. It's Northern Kingdom is the majority. There's 3 Judite families, and there's about 3 Edomite families. The Edomite families are heathens. Okay. Simple as that. This is first. Samuel. I'm in the New Testament. Salakia. 15:28. And it reads, and Samuel said unto him, Yahweh have rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day. All right, he's talking to Saul. And he have given it to a neighbor of thine that is better than thou. And we know that the kingdom was given to David. David is the neighbor. Another Israelite is your neighbor. That's what it's talking about. And biblically. All right. It's not talking about now when you got an intermixed, nationalities, and, you got a Chinese family, the Moabite family across the street. You got the Edomite family next door. You got the Elamite family on the other side. It's not talking about some mixed neighborhood, in New York or California. That's not what it's talking about. Okay. Because, for the most part, Chicago is very segregated. Usually Moab lives where Moab lives. Ammon lives where he lives. Esau lives where he lives, and only the borders of those you might see, a few intermixed families, blocks where those border blocks. But when you get off into those neighborhoods, it's all whoever it is. That's just Chicago. Okay. But yeah, let's go back to Hebrews now. Now that I clearly biblically identify who your neighbor is. So we killed that argument, killed that falsehood. We went in Hebrews 8. And we just read 11. So it says, verse 12, for I will be merciful to their unrighteousness and their sins and their iniquities, I will remember no more. Well, your iniquity is what? Violation of the Holy Scriptures. Okay? And who was under the law? Once again, only the Israelites were under the law. Romans 7:1. Matter of fact, let me get that. Romans. Very powerful book. Because Hebrews, right? So right there in the middle of Hebrews, it gives you the breakdown of who the actual covenants are for. Same thing in Romans. You know, you go to Romans right in the middle of the book. I've noticed that's a pattern with the Lord. Because it's not until verse 9 till it makes it beyond clear who the they, anyone who believes, you know, the Greek, no Jew, it gives it a breakdown of who it's talking about according to the flesh. All right. But this is Romans 7:1. It reads, know ye not, brethren, your brethren, kinsmen according to the flesh. So, you know, so it's not talking about the other nations. For I speak to them that know the law, and how the law have dominion over man as long as he liveth. But what did Christianity do? What did Edomites do that are in charge of Christianity? Modern day teach. Wow, look at all these deception, all these words. All right. They mendaciously, all right, lie, deception, misleading, act of misleading, a lie, falsehood, include themselves. Not only did they try to include everyone, but they put themselves on the top racially. Because now another thing that they do is when they show you, you know, they have the mendacity, the mendaciousness to show the people of the Lord and the Lord as a pale man, as a so-called white man. Almost every cartoon, every movie that comes out, you know, during the time of Easter or any of their false holidays, Christmas, they show you Edomites as Israelites, trying to, you know, forward the lie that those converts that this video was talking about are the people of the Lord, and that's a complete and total lie. So now let's go to Romans. Did I finish Hebrews? Let me see. Did I read all the way up to verse 13? Hebrews 8. Yeah, I didn't read 13. Hebrews 8:12. For I will be merciful unto their unrighteousness and their sins. Only the Israelites can sin because only the Israelites were under the law. Right? It tells you in the book of John, 1 John, that sin is transgression of the law. Only the Israelites were under the law. You can't transgress the law that you were never under. That would be like trying to hold someone over in Sweden, or someone over in Germany, someone over in one of the countries in Africa under American law. They're not under the law. So the law does not have the prosecution nor the covering over those people. Duh. Hebrews 8:13. In that he saith, a new covenant he hath made, the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. So the law was not done away with. All right. It just told you in Romans 7:1 that the law it has dominion over man as long as he liveth. What happens is the law gets put into our inward parts. You will find that in 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, when the change comes. And those who under the order of Melchizedek, all right, you get made new. It makes me even wonder, will we have umbilical cords? Our bodies are going to be made new. We're not going to have mothers and fathers. Those of us who get translated, get put on the chairs of Israel, all right, and then and from the heavens watch the destruction of Babylon, and then come down and rule over all the nations in the under the authority of Yahushua, with King David at the head of that. All right, that's biblical. That's what the Bible actually says. Christianity creates these myths. The myths of what do they call it? The rapture. That's not scriptural. Floating around on clouds in heaven, that's not scriptural. The Bible is very clear that heaven will be here on earth. People rest in the spirit world until they get recycled back onto the earth every third and fourth generation. That's another thing that Christianity lies about or tries to hide from, because they don't want to be made accountable for anything that they've done in the past. All right? And history repeats itself, because every 3-4 generations, the same people come back. That's scriptural. That's why it's happening. All right? Read Matthew, the first chapter, makes it very clear of the regeneration, reincarnation. All you have to do is read Matthew the 1 and 1. It makes it very clear. Okay? And even more so, 2nd Ezra 14 and 34, when it tells you when we shall live again. So let's finish this up. Let's go to Romans, the 9th chapter now, and how it's connected to Hebrews, the 8th chapter. You know, because they'll try to use Romans and try to, for there's no difference between neither Greek nor Jew. Well, once again, that's them purposely not teaching that there are two sets of Gentiles. And the Bible makes it very, very clear, and yet they still try to lie their way around it and use the same scriptures over and over again. And they completely and totally fabricate and push it forth a lie. Okay? As a matter of fact, when they told you in that scripture, let me go back before I read Romans, the 9th chapter. I think it's in Hebrews. In Romans 2, actually, not Hebrews, but in Romans 2 and 14, when you get to the point where it says, God damn it, 2 and 14. All right, it says, I start at verse 12. For as many have sinned without law shall also perish without law. And as many have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. So the law is a sin, is basically a death sentence once you go off. That's why the Lord is changing it. He's going to put it in your inward parts. That's the change. Same law is just going to be put in your inward parts so that you know that's how you have an everlasting dominion, by keeping the law perfectly. The same way as Yahushua did. That's how Yahushua was able to be raised up and go into his power. He lived his life and never transgressed the law, and there was no other person that ever did that. Okay? So the Lord's going to make it to where all of Israel can do that by putting the laws in your inward parts. Okay? For verse 13, for not hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. See? So it didn't say it was done away with. It said the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles which have not the law, all right, and this is part of the fabrication and the untruth, because they could have easily put Hellenists there the same way they did in Acts 6 and 1, Acts 9 and 29. And then you get the breakdown of Hellenists, and it tells you that was a Greek-speaking Jew. All right? But people hear Gentile and think the other nations. No. Because you have to read above and below it. And that's how you know that, it's talking about Israelites according to the flesh. All right? And then this word, verse 14, makes it clear. It says, for when the Gentiles which have not the law do by nature. Hold on. So when you go into that word nature, that's Greek 5549. 5549. Look it up. And it basically tells you a germination by expansion, the implication of lineal descents. Those Gentiles were related by blood to the J's. To the, not the J-ish. All right. You see? So these people lie. So let's go back to Romans, the 9th chapter. Verses 1 through 5. Or I'll just read 2. All right. Romans 9, 2 through 5. It says, and I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart, for I wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach. All right. Which means the anointed Savior. Like I said, they use that C word. All right. And that C word is a Greek translation of a title, not his name. All right. For I wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh. This Romans 9 explains Romans 2. All right. They were according to the flesh. All right. Who are Israelites? To whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the services of God and the promises. All right. And the only way to get those promises is to be made perfect when it's put in your inward parts. And that doesn't happen until the change comes upon the return of the Lord. The people in the land of Israel are frauds. They're not from the Caucasus Mountains originally. They're actually from Mount Seir. All right. They were forced into the Caucasus Mountains after the fall of Rome because Edomites, pale people, people who refer to themselves as white or Caucasian today, were forced into the Caucasus Mountains when Rome fell by the melanated people, mainly the Israelites who were ruling once Rome fell. Hence the reason why they have so much hate and they lied up and whitewash history and push forth white superiority to hide all this truth, to hide all the evidence of the dark rule, the Israelites ruling all throughout Europe, all right, throughout the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, all the way up into the rebirth, which was the Renaissance, when the Edomites came back into power, fulfilling scriptures of the red dragon of Rome, the dragon that was wounded but did live, and Satan was loosed for a little season. All right, so 500 years is just a couple of moments to the Lord. They got dominion over the earth, and look how much damage they did in that short period of time. And the Wadi Yahweh, we're at the end of that. Okay? So the Lord is coming back to redeem his people, put the new covenant, the law, into their inward parts, so that they may rule here on earth perfectly. That is your 144,000 that the book of Revelations speaks of. Okay? As a matter of fact, let me get that real quick. Revelation 21 and 2. And it reads, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for a husband. All right. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. What men? The 12 tribes of Israel. 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes, mainly made up of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. And he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God shall be with them, and be their God. All right. And that's why he also tells you that he is of in Revelation 22 and 16, I, Yahushua, have sent my angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. He is the bloodline. All right. The seed line, that same by nature that is talked about in Romans 2 and 14. Okay, germination by expansion of lineal descent from Israelite male to Israelite male to Israelite male until the Lord is born. Right, and his people, and until the time that they remember themselves, as it tells you in Baruch. You Christians are done. Call halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakah Hakudash Kwam Yasharala Abad Babal.